The human ship called Horizon's Edge came out of space travel after 6 long months. Park Do-hyun stood near the window and looked at the planet below. Velaris Prime was beautiful. The whole planet seemed to glow with soft blue and purple light. Crystal mountains rose from the surface like giant teeth reaching toward the sky. Do-hyun was 28 years old. He was not a soldier or a diplomat. He was just an engineer. His job was simple. He had to keep the translation machines working so that humans and aliens could understand each other. But standing here, looking at an alien world for the first time, he felt very small. Ambassador Kim Yuna walked up beside him. She was a serious woman in her 40s, with gray streaks in her black hair. She had spent her whole life preparing for this moment. Humans had never visited the Valari Empire before. This was the first time. "Remember the rules," she said to Do-hyun without looking at him. "Do not look at their royalty in the eyes. Do not speak unless they speak to you first. Do not go anywhere you are not supposed to go." Do-hyun nodded. He had memorized the rules many times. The Valari were an old and proud species. They had lived for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. They did not think much of humans. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. The ship landed softly on a platform, made of something that looked like glass but was stronger than steel. When the doors opened, Do-hyun took his first breath of alien air. It smelled like flowers and rain and something electric, like the air before a storm. Valari guards waited for them. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with skin that glowed faintly from inside. Their eyes were large and changed color as they looked at the humans. Right now, those eyes were pale yellow. Do-hyun did not know what that meant. The guards led them through halls made of crystal. Everything was beautiful but cold. There were no pictures on the walls, no plants, no signs of life except for the Valari themselves, who moved like ghosts through their own palace. The throne room was the largest space Do-hyun had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of Valari stood on both sides, watching the humans walk down the center path. Do-hyun kept his eyes on the floor, but he could feel them staring. Queen Morvain sat on a throne made of a single perfect crystal. She was ancient. Do-hyun had read that she was over 12,000 years old. But she looked young, with silver hair that floated around her head like she was underwater. Her eyes were pure white, and when she looked at the humans, Do-hyun felt cold. "So," the queen said. Her voice was soft, but it filled the entire room. "These are the humans." She said the word like someone might say insects or dirt. Ambassador Kim bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, we are honored to be here. Humanity wishes to build friendship with the great Valari Empire." The queen smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Friendship. How sweet. Your species has existed for such a short time. A few 100,000 years. I have dresses older than your civilization." Some of the Valari in the crowd made sounds that might have been laughter. Do-hyun kept his eyes down, but his face felt hot. He wanted to say something. He wanted to tell this ancient queen that humans had value too. But he stayed quiet. He was just an engineer. It was not his place. "We shall see," the queen continued. "If you can learn proper behavior during your stay, my servants will show you to your rooms. Try not to break anything." As the humans were led away, Do-hyun allowed himself one quick look upward. That was when he saw her. On a balcony high above the throne room, a young Valari woman stood watching. She was different from the others. While they all looked bored or disgusted, she looked curious. Her eyes were silver, not white like her mother's, and they were fixed directly on Do-hyun. Princess, literal. He had seen her picture in the briefing documents. She was the youngest daughter of the queen, only 3,000 years old. The report said she was cold and cruel, that she hated other species even more than most Valari did, but the way she looked at him did not seem like hate. It seemed like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Their eyes met for just a moment. Then Do-yoon remembered the rules and looked away quickly. When he glanced up again, she was gone. That night, Do-yoon could not sleep. The room they gave him was beautiful but strange. The bed was too soft. The lights never fully turned off. Everything hummed with alien technology he did not understand. He needed to find a bathroom. The translator device showed him a map, but the palace was confusing. All the hallways looked the same. After 20 minutes of walking, he was completely lost. He tried one door. It was locked. He tried another. Also locked. The third door opened easily, and he stepped through without thinking. He found himself in a garden. But it was not like any garden on Earth. The plants glowed with their own light. A pool of water shimmered with colors that did not have names in any human language. 2 moons hung in the sky above, casting silver shadows on everything. And there, sitting alone by the water, was Princess Lyral. She was humming softly to herself. The sound was beautiful and sad at the same time. She had not seen him yet. Do-yoon knew he should leave. Every rule told him to leave. But his feet would not move. He stood there, frozen, watching an alien princess in her private moment. Then she turned around. Her eyes flashed bright red, the color of rage and shock. In that moment, Do-yoon knew he had made a terrible mistake. By Valari law, entering a royal's private space without permission was punishable by death. He waited for her to scream for the guards. Princess Lyral stared at the human with eyes that burned red. No one had ever entered her private garden without permission. No one had ever seen her like this, alone and unguarded, humming to herself like a common person. The shame of it made her want to call the guards immediately. But something stopped her. The human was afraid. She could see it in his face, and the way his hands shook slightly at his sides. He knew he was going to die, yet he did not run. He did not fall to his knees and beg. He just stood there, looking at her with those strange human eyes. Do-yoon's mind raced. He had to do something. He had to say something. But what could he possibly say to save his life? Then he remembered a phrase from the children's language program he had studied on the ship. It was meant for young Valari, too, used when apologizing to their parents for small mistakes. It was completely wrong for this situation, but it was all he had. He bowed awkwardly and spoke in broken Valari. "I am very small and stupid. Please do not be angry at the small stupid one." Lyral blinked. The red faded from her eyes, replaced by confusion. Did this human just call himself a small stupid one? Did he just use a phrase meant for children who spilled their drinks? She tried to stay angry. She really did. But something about the way he said it, so serious and so completely wrong, made something happen that had not happened in centuries. She laughed. The sound surprised her more than it surprised Do-yoon. Valari royalty did not laugh. Laughter was for common people, for those who did not have the dignity of the throne to protect. She covered her mouth with her hand, horrified at herself. Do-yoon watched her, confused. Was laughing good? Was it bad? He had no idea. "You," Lyral said, finally controlling herself, "are either very brave or very foolish." "I think foolish," Do-yoon admitted. "I was looking for a bathroom." "A bathroom?" She stared at him. "You invaded royal private space because you needed to relieve yourself?" "The hallways all look the same," he said weakly. Lyral should have called the guards. She should have had him taken away and executed. That was the law. That was tradition. But instead, she found herself curious. In 3,000 years, no one had ever made her laugh. No one had ever stood before her without fear in the way this human did. He was afraid, yes, but he was not broken by it. "Sit," she commanded, pointing to a stone near the water. Do-yoon hesitated. "If I wanted you dead, you would already be dead. Sit." He sat. Laurel studied him like a scientist might study a strange insect. "Your people live such short lives. 80 years? 90 if you are lucky?" "Something like that," Do-yoon said. "That is nothing. That is a breath. How do you bear it, knowing death is always so close?" It was a strange question, but Do-hyun thought about it seriously. "I think because we do not live long, we try to make every moment count. We love harder. We laugh more. We do not wait to be happy." Laurel frowned. "That makes no sense. If life is short, surely you would be sad all the time, knowing it will end?" "Some people are," Do-yoon admitted. "But most of us learn that being sad about the end ruins the middle. So we choose to enjoy the middle instead." This was a completely alien concept to Laurel. She had lived for 3,000 years, and she would live for many thousands more. Time meant nothing to her. There was always tomorrow. There was always later. But for this human, there might not be a tomorrow. And yet he sat here, calm, talking to her like they were friends. "Why do humans smile so much?" she asked. "I watched your group today. Even when my mother insulted you, some of you were smiling." Dawn thought about this. Because we do not live long enough to waste time being sad. When you only have a few years, you learn to find joy in small things. A good meal, a beautiful sunset, a conversation with someone interesting. And this conversation? Is it interesting? Do-hyun looked at her. She was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe. Not like a human woman. More like looking at a star or a perfect crystal. Beautiful and dangerous and completely beyond his understanding. "This is the most interesting conversation I have ever had," he said honestly. Laurel's eyes shifted color. The red was completely gone now, replaced by a soft violet that Do-hyun did not understand. Before she could respond, they both heard the sound of footsteps. "Guards," she whispered. Her voice was suddenly urgent. "Hide, now." She pointed to a large crystal formation near the edge of the garden. Do-hyun moved quickly, pressing himself behind it just as two Valari guards entered the garden. "Princess," one of them said, bowing low. "We heard voices." "Is everything?" "Well, I was reciting poetry to myself," Laurel said. Her voice was cold again, the way a princess should sound. "Is it now a crime for me to speak in my own garden?" "No, princess." "Forgive us. We only wish to ensure your safety." "My safety is none of your concern. Leave." The guards bowed again and left quickly. Laurel waited until their footsteps faded completely before speaking again. "You may come out." Do-hyun stepped from behind the crystal. His heart was beating fast. "Thank you. You saved my life. Do not thank me yet. If anyone learns you were here, we will both be in trouble." She paused, looking at him with those violet eyes. "You should return to your quarters. Follow the blue lights in the hallway. They will lead you back." Do-hyun bowed, properly this time. "I'm sorry for disturbing you, princess." He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Human, what is your name?" "Park Do-hyun." "Do-hyun." She said it slowly, like she was tasting the word. "I have lived for 3,000 years, Do-hyun. I thought I had seen everything worth seeing, but tonight you have surprised me. That has not happened in a very long time." Do-hyun did not know what to say to that, so he simply bowed again and walked toward the door. Just before he left, he looked back. Princess Laurel was watching him, her eyes still that soft violet color. He wanted to ask what it meant, but he was already lucky to be alive. He should not push that luck. He followed the blue lights back to his room and lay in the strange alien bed, staring at the ceiling. He could still hear her laugh in his mind. He could still see her violet eyes. He was just an engineer from Earth. She was a princess who had lived for 3,000 years. There was no future there. He knew that, but as he finally fell asleep, he could not stop thinking about her. The days after their meeting in the garden passed strangely for both of them. Do-hyun returned to his work with the translation machines, standing quietly in the corner while Ambassador Kim negotiated with Valari officials. But his mind kept wandering back to that night, to the princess. To her violet eyes, Princess Lyral found herself doing something she had never done before. She watched the human delegation. She stood on balconies and observed their meetings. She asked servants about their schedules. She told herself it was just curiosity about a primitive species. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. On the fourth day, she made her move. "I require a technical expert," she announced to her mother's council. "Someone to explain human technology to me. It may be useful for our military to understand their capabilities." No one questioned the princess. An hour later, Do-hyun found himself standing in a small meeting room, alone with Princess Lyral for the first time since the garden. "You wanted to see human technology?" he asked nervously. "No." She sat down gracefully. "I wanted to talk to you." The technology was an excuse. Do-hyun did not know whether to feel honored or terrified. "Princess, if someone finds out, then we will deal with it. For now, sit. Tell me more about your people." And so he did. Over the next 2 weeks, they met again and again. Sometimes in the meeting room, sometimes in hidden corners of the palace. Each time, Lyral asked questions and Do-hyun answered them. She wanted to know everything. How did humans fall in love? How did they choose their life's work? What did they do when they were sad? What made them happy? Do-hyun answered as honestly as he could. He told her about his family back on Earth, his mother who made the best soup in their neighborhood, his father who worked in a factory for 30 years without complaint, his little sister who wanted to be a singer. "You miss them," Lyral said one afternoon. It was not a question. "Every day," Do-hyun admitted. "But being here, representing humanity, it is worth it. My family understands." "Valari do not have families like that," Lyral said quietly. "We live so long that bonds break apart over time. I have not spoken to my father in 500 years. I have siblings I have not seen in longer. We drift apart like stars moving slowly through space." That sounds lonely. I did not think so before. Loneliness is for short-lived species who need each other to survive. We Valari are complete on our own. She paused. At least, that is what I believed. Do-hyun pulled out his personal music player, a small device he had brought from Earth. "Can I show you something?" Lyral looked at the device with curiosity. He played a song for her. It was a sad song, sung by a woman with a voice that seemed to carry all the pain in the world. When it finished, Lyral's eyes had shifted to a deep blue. "That was beautiful," she said, "but also painful. Why would your people create something that hurts?" "Because sharing pain makes it smaller," Do-hyun explained. "When we hear a sad song, we know that someone else has felt what we feel. We are not alone in our suffering. The song connects us to everyone who has ever loved and lost." Lyral considered this for a long time. Connection through shared pain. That is such a human idea. We Valari believe pain is weakness. We hide it. We pretend it does not exist. Maybe that is why you feel lonely. No one had ever spoken to Lyral like this. No one had ever dared to suggest that the Valari way might be wrong. She should have been offended. Instead, she found herself thinking about his words long after he had left. On the 10th day, there was a formal dinner. All the important Valari nobles gathered in the Great Hall to discuss the treaty with humanity. The human delegation sat at a small table in the corner, clearly separated from the main celebration. Queen Morvain spoke about the negotiations. She talked about trade and borders and military agreements. Everything was cold and formal, just as Valari liked it not. Then Princess Liril did something that shocked everyone. She stood up and pointed at Dohyun. "You, human, I have a question about your customs." The room went silent. A princess speaking directly to a human at a formal dinner? It was unheard of. Darwin stood slowly, his heart beating fast. "Yes, princess? Explain to us the human custom of giving gifts. I have heard your species does this frequently." Why? It was a simple question. But the way she asked it, treating him as someone worth listening to, someone with knowledge to share, sent ripples through the assembled nobles. Queen Morvaine's eyes narrowed slightly, watching her daughter with an expression that was hard to read. Dohyun cleared his throat. Humans give gifts to show love and appreciation. When we care about someone, we want to give them something that will make them happy. The gift itself is not as important as what it represents, the thought, the effort, the love behind it. So, it is not about the value of the object? No. A child's drawing can mean more than a diamond if it comes from the heart. Some of the Valari nobles made sounds of disbelief. But Liril smiled just slightly, just for a moment, and sat back down. After the dinner, High Commander Thyron approached Queen Morvaine. "Your Majesty, the princess's behavior tonight was concerning. She has been spending much time with that human engineer." "I have noticed," the queen said calmly. "Should I separate them?" The queen watched her daughter leave the hall, something unreadable in her ancient eyes. "Not yet. Let us see where this leads." That night, Liril came to Dohyun's quarters. She moved through the shadows like smoke, appearing at his door without warning. "Princess." He stepped back in shock. "You cannot be here. If someone sees, I needed to tell you something." She stepped inside and closed the door. "What you said tonight about gifts from the heart. No one has ever explained humans to us that way. You made them listen. I just told the truth. That is exactly what I mean." She moved closer to him. "In 3,000 years, I have never met anyone like you. You do not try to impress me with power or wealth. You just tell me the truth, even when it is simple, even when it might make you look weak." She reached out and touched his face gently. In Valari culture, this was one of the most intimate gestures possible. It meant trust. It meant opening yourself to another person completely. Dohyun froze. He knew what this gesture meant. He had read about it in the briefing documents. But he never imagined a princess would do this to him. "Liril," he whispered. It was the first time he had used her name. "I do not know what this feeling is," she admitted. Her eyes were that soft violet again. "I have never experienced anything like it. You confuse me, Dohyun. You make me question everything I believed about your species, about my own species, about myself." Before he could respond, she pulled her hand back and stepped away. "I should go, but I wanted you to know. Whatever happens, meeting you has changed me." She slipped out the door and disappeared into the darkness. Neither of them noticed the small device hidden in the corner of the room. A surveillance device placed there by High Commander Thyron, recording everything. High Commander Thyron stood before Queen Morvaine with a look of grim satisfaction on his face. In his hand, he held a small crystal that contained the recordings from Dohyun's room. He had watched them several times, and each viewing made his disgust grow stronger. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low, "I have evidence of a serious crime. The human engineer has corrupted your daughter." Queen Morvaine sat perfectly still on her throne. Her wide eyes revealed nothing. "Show me." The recordings played in the air before them. The private meetings, the conversations, the dinner where Liril had addressed Dohyun directly, and finally, the moment in his room when she had touched his face. Several nobles gasped. Even by Valari standards, this was shocking. A princess touching an alien? opening herself to a creature who would be dead in 60 years. It was beyond scandal. It was betrayal. The human must be executed, Thyron declared. He has used some kind of psychological manipulation on the princess. This is clearly an attack on our royal family. And my daughter? The queen asked quietly. She must be confined until she recovers from whatever spell this creature has put on her. Perhaps in 100 years, she will return to normal. Queen Morvain was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. Bring them both to me, now. Do-hyun was pulled from his bed by guards. They did not explain anything. They simply grabbed his arms and dragged him through the crystal hallways toward the throne room. Ambassador Kim ran after them, demanding to know what was happening, but no one answered her. The throne room was full again, but this time the mood was different. Every Velari looked at Do-hyun with hatred in their color-changing eyes. He was no longer a curiosity. He was a criminal. Princess Lyra was brought in from another door. Her hands were bound with glowing restraints. Her eyes were wide with fear, but when she saw Do-hyun, something else crossed her face. Determination. Park Do-hyun, Queen Morvain spoke. Her voice echoed through the massive chamber. You stand accused of corrupting a member of our royal family, of using human tricks to manipulate my daughter into shameful behavior. The punishment for this crime is death. Ambassador Kim stepped forward. Your Majesty, please. This could destroy relations between our species. There must be some mistake. Silence. The queen did not raise her voice, but the word cut through the air like a blade. This is not a diplomatic matter. This is a family matter. Do-hyun looked at Lyra. She was staring at him with those violet eyes. She was scared, but she was also sorry. Sorry that her feelings had put him in danger. In that moment, Do-hyun made a decision. He stepped forward, pulling free from the guards. Several Velari reached for weapons, but the queen raised a hand to stop them. Your Majesty, Do-hyun said clearly, Princess Lyra is innocent. I am the one who should be punished. Lyra's eyes went wide. Do-hyun, no. I manipulated her, he continued, lying with everything he had. I studied Velari psychology before coming here. I knew how to make her trust me. I targeted her specifically because she was royal. Everything that happened is my fault. She is a victim of my human tricks. The room buzzed with whispers. This was a confession. This was exactly what Thyron had claimed, but Princess Lyra stepped forward, her bound hands raised. He is lying. Everyone turned to look at her. He is lying to protect me, she said. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. I was the one who sought him out. After he stumbled into my garden by accident, I was the one who asked to see him again. I was the one who arranged our meetings. I was the one who went to his room last night. Queen Morvain's eyes flickered with something surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. And why would you do these things? Because he made me feel something I have never felt in 3,000 years. Lyra's voice broke. He made me laugh. He made me think. He made me question the empty existence I've been living. I will not let him die for my choices. She turned to face Do-hyun. You foolish human. Did you really think I would let you sacrifice yourself for me? I had to try, Do-hyun said quietly. High Commander Thyron stepped forward angrily. This changes nothing. The human has contaminated our princess. Whether she went willingly or not, he must die. It is the only way to remove this stain from our honor. Be silent, Thyron. Everyone turned to look at the queen. She had risen from her throne, something she had not done in 500 years. Slowly, she descended the steps and walked toward Do-hyun and Lyra. Up close, she was terrifying. Her power radiated from her like heat from a star. Do-hyun felt his knees want to buckle, but he forced himself to stand straight. The queen looked at her daughter first. In 3,000 years, have you ever raised your voice in my court? Lyra lowered her head. Now, mother, have you ever defied my commander? Contradicted his accusations? Defended another being? No. The queen turned to Do-Yun. Her white eyes seemed to look through him into his very soul. And you, small creature, you who will live for only a brief moment compared to us, you would give up your remaining years for my daughter, knowing that your life is already so short? Do-Hyun met her gaze. Every instinct told him to look away, but he did not. Yes, why? It was such a simple question. Why would he die for an alien princess he had known for only 2 weeks? Because she matters, he said finally. Because in my short life, I have never met anyone like her. Because humans believe that love is worth dying for, even when that love can never be. The queen was silent. The entire court was silent. Tyron looked like he wanted to speak, but something in the queen's expression stopped him. Finally, she turned away and walked back toward her throne. But she did not sit. She stood facing away from them, looking at something only she could see. 12,000 years, she said softly. I have ruled for 12,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars burn out. I have forgotten more than most beings will ever know. She turned around, and for the first time, her eyes were not white. They were violet. And in all that time, no one has ever done what you two have done tonight. My daughter defended a creature she has known for days. You offered to die for someone you can never have. Both of you chose connection over safety, love over survival. She looked at High Commander Tyron. You are dismissed from your position. Tyron's mouth fell open. Your Majesty, you overstepped. You spied on my daughter. You tried to use this situation to increase your own power. I have no use for such ambition. Leave. Tyron wanted to argue, but the look in the queen's eyes stopped him. He bowed stiffly and left the throne room, his career in ruins. Queen Morvain turned back to Do-Yun. Perhaps, she said slowly, we have misjudged your species. Do-Yun hardly dared to breathe. Your Majesty? You will not die today, Park Do-Yun, and my daughter will not be confined. She paused. But this conversation is not over. We have much to discuss about what comes next. The days after the throne room changed everything. Word spread through the palace like fire. The human engineer who had captured a princess's heart. The princess who had defied her mother. The queen who had shown mercy instead of fury. The treaty negotiations moved faster now. Ambassador Kim found that doors which had been closed were suddenly open. Valari officials who had sneered at humans now listened with something like respect. Not full acceptance, that would take time, but a beginning. On the 5th day after the judgment, Queen Morvain summoned Lyra to her private chambers. The princess had been dreading this conversation. Mother, she said, bowing as she entered. I know I have disappointed you. Queen Morvain sat by a window that showed a view of the Crystal Mountains. The light made her look younger somehow, less like an ancient ruler and more like a tired woman. Sit with me, she said. It was not a command. It was a request. Lyra sat. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They simply looked out at the mountains together, the way they had not done since Lyra was young. Do you know why I did not punish you? The queen finally asked. No. Because watching you defend that human reminded me of something I had forgotten. She turned to look at her daughter. 12,000 years ago, I was like you. Young, curious, capable of feeling things deeply. But over time, I let those feelings fade. I told myself they were weaknesses. I became cold because I thought that was strength. Her eyes were violet again, that color Do-Yun had seen but never understood. Lyra realized it was the color of deep emotion, the color of a heart that had Learn to feel again. Learn to feel again. Watching you stand before my court and fight for someone watching that human offer his life for. I remembered what it felt like to care about another being. Truly care. I had forgotten. The Queen's voice cracked slightly. I am 12,000 years old, and I had forgotten how to love. Lyral felt tears forming in her eyes. Valari did not cry, but she did not try to stop them. I do not know what I feel for him, she admitted. He will be dead in 60 years. I will live for thousands more. Any relationship between us would be brief and painful. Yes, it would. The Queen reached out and took her daughter's hand. But you must ask yourself, is a brief moment of true connection worth more than an eternity of emptiness? Lyral did not have an answer. Not yet. The final day came too quickly. The treaty was signed. Humanity and the Valari Empire would now be allies. Trade would flow between their worlds. Cultural exchanges would begin. It was everything Ambassador Kim had hoped for, but Do-yoon could not celebrate. He stood at the window of his room, looking out at the alien world he had grown to love, knowing he would never see it again. Knowing he would never see her again. A knock at his door. He opened it to find Princess Lyral standing there, dressed not in royal robes but in simple clothes. May I come in? He stepped aside. She walked to the window and stood beside him, looking at the same view. Your ship leaves in 4 hours, she said. I know. I have been thinking about what you told me, about how humans make every moment count because they have so few moments. Do-yoon turned to look at her. She was so beautiful, so far beyond his reach. Lyral, I have requested permission to accompany your delegation. She said it quickly, like she was afraid she would lose her courage. As a Valari cultural representative, I will travel to Earth. Do-yoon could not speak. He must have heard wrong. I know it is strange, she continued. I know it does not make sense. I will outlive you by thousands of years. Any time we have together will be a blink compared to my total life. But you taught me something, Do-yoon. You taught me that a life without connection is just existence. I have existed for 3,000 years. She finally looked at him. I would like to try living instead. Are you sure? His voice was barely a whisper. You would leave everything. Your home, your family, your whole world. I would leave emptiness. I would leave loneliness. I would leave a life that had become nothing but routine. She reached out and touched his face again. That gesture of complete trust. He showed me what joy looks like, what laughter feels like, what it means to care about someone so much that you would die for them. How can I go back to what I was before? Do-yoon felt tears rolling down his cheeks. He did not try to hide them. I cannot promise you forever, he said. Humans can never promise forever. I do not want forever. I want now. I want today and tomorrow and however many days we have together. She smiled a real smile that lit up her whole face. My mother told me something this morning. She said that she wasted 12,000 years being afraid to feel. She said she watched us and remembered what she had lost. And she told me not to make the same mistake. High above, on a balcony overlooking the landing platform, Queen Morvain watched the human ship prepare for departure. An aide stood beside her, looking nervous. Your Majesty, the council is concerned about the princess's decision. They feel, I know what they feel, the Queen interrupted. They feel that she is throwing her life away on a creature who will die in a breath. They feel that she is abandoning her duty. And what do you feel, Your Majesty? The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. I feel hopeful. The aide looked confused. Hopeful? My daughter has reminded me that even we who measure time in thousands of years can still be surprised. That connection is not weakness, but strength. That caring about others, even temporary others, makes life worth living. She paused. The humans are young, fragile, brief, and yet somehow one of them walked into my daughter's garden and changed the course of an empire. She turned away from the balcony. The ship's engines were starting now. Soon it would carry her daughter away to a strange world. Perhaps that is what we needed, the Queen said softly. Perhaps that is what I needed? Someone to remind us that immortality means nothing if we use it to avoid living. On the ship, Do-hyun and Lyril stood at a window together, watching Valaris Prime shrink behind them. She held his hand tightly. Are you scared? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. I have never left my world before. I do not know your customs. I do not know your food. I do not know anything about how to be human. That is okay. I do not know anything about how to be Valari. She laughed. That beautiful, unexpected sound that had started everything. I suppose we will learn together. Do-hyun squeezed her hand. Together. I like that word. Behind them, the stars stretched out toward Earth, toward a future neither of them could predict. There would be challenges. There would be pain. One day, Do-hyun would grow old and die, and Lyril would have to continue without him. But that day was far away. Right now, in this moment, they had each other. And as Do-hyun had taught her, the moment was all that mattered. The ship flew on through the darkness, carrying two people from different worlds towards something new. Something that had never existed before. A bridge between species. A bond between Hardstad and on Valaris Prime. A 12,000-year-old queen stood at her window and smiled for the first time in centuries. Her daughter had found something rare and precious. Something worth leaving an empire for that she had found love. And that, the queen now understood, was the most human thing of all.